Welcome back, everyone. So tonight I'm delighted to welcome a very special guest onto the show. He's been a friend of mine for a number of years. His name is Curtis. He lives out in the United States. Curtis, welcome to the show. Just give the audience a brief introduction about yourself, what you do, and what you've done, more importantly.
Okay. Well, first of all, I met Paul, about 5-6 years ago, when I got into watches. And I got into watches because I was heavily involved in politics and the whole Trump thing and saving our Constitution and all that. And she said, find another hobby. So I got into watches. But my background was grew up in rural upstate New York in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. I'm a little older than Paul. Grew up with firearms with the Constitution, went off to college, was on the pistol team, was in the Marine Corps for 13 years active duty. I was a Huey and a Cobra pilot. Left the Marine Corps in 1990, flew corporate for 9 years in California, mostly LA and San Diego. And then I spent 21 years as a pilot for American Airlines, retired off the 777. And for a good portion of that time, I was a federal flight deck officer. So after 9/11, the United States armed, besides having federal air marshals, we armed tens of thousands of pilots. We all went to training in Artesia, New Mexico. We became credentialed, badged federal officers, and we carried in the cockpit.
What was you carrying in the cockpit?
I was carrying our duty issue weapon was an H&K USP-40 compact law enforcement model with no safety on it. So it was a hammer fired,
hot and ready to go.
In 40 Smith & Wesson. So,
yeah.
And we had a separate firearm from what the Federal Air Marshals had. I can't remember what their first weapon was. They went to the 357 SIG. They kept us with the H&K USP-40 Smith & Wesson, which I like. It's a good weapon, heavy trigger pull for us, but it's an expensive, well-made. H&K, Heckler & Koch make a great firearm. So we carried those for years in the cockpit. We couldn't do it internationally. Well, we could 3 places. We could go to Haiti, Israel, and one other country. And of course I could go to Puerto Rico or Guam, places like that. But the air marshals loved that because it allowed them to do London, Paris, and all those other places. So my last 5 years, I flew London. Of course, I couldn't carry, but I always typically, believe it or not, had 4 federal air marshals on board the London flights.
4?
Yes.
Wow. That's a surprise. So let's get into the look, the main topic of the video tonight, Kurt, obviously is the events that took place over the last few days.
Sure.
Donald Trump. I mean, what do you, you're a big Trump man. What do you make of the events that have taken place over the last few days? Because looking at it from this side of the pond, there's a lot of things here that don't quite add up.
Okay. Lots of high strangeness going on. I don't trust anything. My lifelong philosophy has been, and this comes from my dad, and this is rule number 1, at face value. Believe nothing of what you hear, 5% of what you read, and 10% of what you see with your own 2 eyes. Question everything, follow up, critical thinking, but be open-minded. Don't dismiss anything out of hand. So, that being said, let's talk about this latest thing. I know from my friends in the Secret Service, from my friends in the military, from my general officer friends, Trump has probably had more assassination attempts on him since he announced than any other president in history. You just don't hear about it.
It's been kept quiet, right?
It's been kept quiet. The one I have heard I haven't, I can't confirm any of this for sure, but I have good sources. And so I just put it in the back of my brain, was in Scotland. And it was supposedly the quote unquote CIA heart attack gun. An agent got killed, putting himself between Trump and that. Well, don't know if it's true, but I know there have been a lot of assassination attempts, at least coming from my friends in the community. So he's always been at risk. He is being protected. Okay. If you think Donald Trump is doing this on his own, for fame or glory, whatever, you need to go back and watch all his interviews. He has categorically said throughout 40 years, I don't want to run for president. Somebody needs to save this country. Okay, so he has help, I believe, and people are working. You know, he's the spokesperson. He's the only one with the cojones out there. You know, I don't care about mean treats. You know, he reminds me of my dad. My dad was, you know, German Irish from the Bronx, and if you were a turd, he'd call you a turd. And I mean, my dad would make me want to crawl into a hole sometimes when I was out in public with him, because he didn't pull any punches. He was a tough street kid from the Bronx and in New York, and you know, luckily he went to a Christian Brothers Catholic high school, and they kicked the shit out of him. So anyway, let's get on to this specifically. What's going on here? Let's talk about critical thinking. And you know, none of this I can confirm. So what did I say? Rule number 1. I gave you rule number 1. Rule number 2 is refer back to rule number 1. So believe 5% at face value of what you see or read or see in videos. So what have we seen? Okay. We've got a rally. Now, I know Donald Trump, this is what people, I can't understand. Donald Trump had 57,000 people at one rally alone that was semi-impromptu at an airport. Okay. He usually has thousands, tens of thousands. He has sometimes turned away over 10,000 people at a rally. So I'm seeing photos of this event. Now, granted, it was afterwards, so maybe most of the people had dispersed, but I didn't see a lot of people, number one.
It looked like a couple of thousand to me.
Yeah, maybe a couple thousand, but I mean, he turns away 10,000 at a time. So how many were really there? Don't know. All I can do is tell, you know, I'm just putting what I can see out there, and I want everybody to think about this and then start digging. Okay. So I only see a couple thousand people out there. So it seemed kind of small. I've seen the overviews of the venue. Okay. Now understand, you have friends of the Secret Service. Okay. The Secret Service, when they set up, if you know anything about sniper, and I've been somewhat sniper trained, and I have friends that are sniper trained. Okay. The Secret Service is going to identify any position where a shooter can be. And they're either going to put an agent there, they're going to put a uniformed Leo there, or they're going to put a counter sniper with eyes on that target. Well, they've got this building right off site. This is not like it's a bunch of high rises and he's in the middle of downtown someplace where there's hundreds of open windows where a sniper can hide. You only really have one area. You've got a counter sniper up there. Well, that seems strange, first of all. So ask yourself this: where are the drones? Drones are cheap. There were no drones that I could tell. Where were the helicopters? Don't know if there were any helicopters, okay? There should have been local Leos in that building just off site. It was only 400 feet away. Okay. So 130, 140 yards. Okay.
When you say Leos, for the UK audience, what do you mean by Leos?
Law enforcement officer.
Okay.
Yeah. Law enforcement officer. We designate as, abbreviate Leos.
Yeah.
So, if the Secret Service is undermanned, and a lot of times they are, they'll have, overseas, they'll have local military or law enforcement there. They may have Navy SEALs or Delta Force, and then boom, they have Secret Service agents there, okay, up close. So they'll use a lot, and they could have had. So they've got these buildings over there, okay? And yeah, they've got a guy up, a counter sniper up on there looking at that building, but they should have had a couple of uniformed Leos in there, okay? Well, what they have is a ladder going up to the roof. And obviously this guy walked up on the roof. Are you kidding me? So where were they? Okay. Why was the ladder there? Okay. When the crowd started yelling, and I saw videos of the crowd saying, hey, we see him up there. They also have photos. You could see the guy get up and go down. He starts, bear crawling up the roof. Immediately the Secret Service should have said, time out, get Trump off the stage. They didn't do that. High strangeness. What the hell's going on? Then I hear this counter sniper supposedly sees him up there, and for several minutes, he's trying to get permission to shoot. Are you kidding me? Okay. If you're a counter sniper and it's that small of a venue, you know where your fellow counter snipers are. So if you see a guy on a roof with a rifle, he's a bad guy. Why do you need permission? Okay. I'm a student of history. I'm a former Marine. I've read virtually every Medal of Honor citation since day one, hundreds of them. Okay. You know what the overriding common theme is?
Go on.
The Medal of Honor recipients, disobeyed direct orders and did what they need to do to save their buddies.
Yeah.
Damned with the stand down order. Okay. You frickin' shoot. You see a guy up there. He's not one of your guys. He's got a rifle. He's within 130 yards of the president. You frickin' so, and then this guy supposedly put that out on a post. It wasn't him. It was somebody else. So I don't believe it at all. So what the hell is going on here? Then, nothing against the female agents, but you have the head of the Secret Service, who's a supposedly former Secret Service agent, but her last job was at PepsiCo, guarding potato chips and soda pop. All right.
Yeah.
And she's a Biden appointee. She wants DEI. She wants female agents. Well, sorry, Trump is 6'2". You need to get big agents,
Yeah, they need to be told.
Get him down, get him out of the way, drag him away. Some 5'5", female agent is not going to be able to do it. I had the same issue in the Marine Corps, and it wasn't just women in the cockpit; it was smaller men. If I'm crashed in my helicopter and I need my co-pilot to pull me out, okay, I can pick up a 130-pound co-pilot and drag them out like so much dirty laundry. I'm 6 foot, 200 pounds. You're not going to drag me out simply. You need to be able to have the physical strength to do the job.
Yeah.
Now, so I counted no less than 5 female agents around his car when they left. 2 were up on the podium with him. 1 appeared to be a supervisor. Nothing against women, okay? But, there are certain times, men and women are different. Sorry. Sue me. You need agents that can do the job. So, sniper. Got an AR-style rifle, supposedly, 223. All right? No optics. He's 20 years old. Probably no military training. No law enforcement training. Maybe he was a hunter. I don't know. All right? It appeared that they pulled some people out of the crowd, maybe somebody else. If you ask me, my opinion only, was this guy a distraction? Okay. Now, supposedly a law enforcement officer went up that ladder right before he started shooting, peered over the top. The shooter looked at him, pointed his rifle at him. The law enforcement officer went down, and this guy started shooting. Was he set up there as a distraction? And then the real assassin was in the crowd.
So no optics. Again, for people that don't understand what that means he had no telescopic sight. He was just using his straightforward iron sights, right?
Yeah. Now I can shoot. I qualified at 500 yards with the M16. I can do that. But I've watched a lot. I've watched a couple of videos on snipers that I follow, and he said there was a 20-knot crosswind. Well, that bullet can drift 2 to 3 inches left or right, depending upon the crosswind. So even if this guy was dead on his melon, his head, at 130, 150 yards, that bullet can drift 2.5, 3 inches. So
and
the head,
a 223 is a small game round, right? It's more like
it was a varmint round. People don't understand. When I was a kid, my neighbor in 65 or so had one of the first Colt AR-15s. He used it for hunting foxes and coyotes and stuff like that. So people say it's not a hunting gun. It most certainly is a hunting gun. In fact, it started as a hunting gun and then went on, in semi-automatic form and full automatic form to be the M16. Yeah. So it is basically a varmint round. In fact, in most states in the U.S., you cannot hunt deer with an AR-15.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's probably what he used. But like I said, he had no optics. So, lone gunman. I ain't buying that for a second. I have heard for years now, Donald Trump has not had Secret Service, or what he's had has been limited. They've basically found a few Secret Service agents that weren't doing what they should have been doing. They were fired, and he's had Delta Force, military people, and private security.
Okay? As a preference.
As a preference, yeah. I mean, we're in a biblical battle of good and evil. They want him dead. You know, all the chatter, you know, threat to our democracy, my butt threat to our democracy. He's the only one following the Constitution. Okay. And I know that.
So you feel there was more than one shooter involved? Probably,
well, I think there may have been. I think the military intelligence may have had, you know, an idea of what was going on. Things went a little awry. We dodged the proverbial bullet, so to speak. There for the grace of God, you know, go. I don't know if you've seen the photo of the fouled American flag, and it's being held up by a cable either side, and it's fouled such that it's got a center section and two wings. Looks like a freaking angel. All right. So who knows? Okay. Like I said, believe nothing. Okay. But look at everything, critical think, and say, there's high strangeness going on here. Okay. All this time. And right now we have this assassination attempt. Okay. Well, this just put him up in the polls. I just posted a thing, and I don't know if I posted it to you. Do you know what one of the most iconic photos in world, if not USA history is?
That would be the
raising
American
of the flag in Iwo Jima.
Iwo Jima, yeah.
And if you know anything, the photo was staged. They raised the flag on Iwo Jima, and afterwards they say, hey, we want you to redo it. And they had a videotape of them doing it, and they had that still, and that's that iconic photo. Well, you've got this iconic photo that may go down in history as the second most, or the most iconic of the 21st century, with Trump surrounded by agents, his head, a full head above the agents, with his fist in the air and the American flag behind him. Okay. Well, any Secret Service agent worth his salt after the president just got nicked in the head is no way going to let him have his head up on that podium yelling, fight, 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 and all that. So who knows? So take a look at the evidence, critical think, and go, what the hell? And then start watching some good Patriot channels. Okay.
This is won him the next election, right? Without a doubt.
Absolutely. Number one. Number two, though, if they're willing to go to these links, okay, they'll do anything to stop that election. So I personally don't think there's going to be an election. Now, I don't want to go deep down the conspiracy rabbit hole, but there's way more to this than meets the eyes, and people need to, and I can put people down certain things. Like I said, you know, I've seen a lot of stuff, and I've gone from 0 belief to 20%, even with overwhelming evidence. I just don't believe anything until I see it all. But I look at everything. There are a couple theories that I've dismissed out of hand.
Curtis, how much blame do you point the finger at the media for normalizing violence from the left?
As much as you can do. Okay.
Yeah.
Understand. And this is stuff you can look up. Why do they hate Donald Trump? Okay. Donald Trump did 3 executive orders that I think everybody needs to know about. And I can link them below or whatever later on. 2 of them have to do with human trafficking, child trafficking, and pedophilia. Okay. He basically, and he is death on this. Okay. If you are guilty of these crimes against children, against humanity, his executive order says you will forfeit 100% of your assets to the U.S. government. You can and will be tried by military tribunal for treason, high treason, and crimes against humanity. When he put that first one out in 2017, the liberal media, liberal Hollywood, Democrats, even Republicans in Congress and CEOs, there were over 2,000 resignations after that.
Yeah.
Alec Baldwin, okay, all the stuff, okay. Robert De Niro, they doth protest too loudly, okay. Why do you think they hate that man? Because there's so much swirling around. I worked in Hollywood for years. I've flown some of the worst people in Hollywood. I have friends that left Hollywood after a few months that worked there who alluded to all of this stuff, things that go on in Hollywood. It is true. To my core, I know it's true because I've been around these people. They creep me the hell out. Okay. And I won't mention any names here because most people go, no, it can't be him. Are you kidding me? It can't be her. You know, think about this. Who is Ghislaine Maxwell? Okay. Look at who her father was. MI5, all this other stuff. She's got a submarine and a helicopter license. Okay. she wasn't being handled by Jeffrey Epstein. She was handling Jeffrey Epstein, if you ask me. Okay. So all this stuff. So you have those two executive orders on human trafficking, child trafficking, and pedophilia. They know. And Donald Trump has said it. I have it all. I've caught them all. He knows what's going on.
This is why they don't. So
well,
what you're
not
saying
just
is
that. Then let's talk about January 6th, the stolen election. You know, Hillary and all these people talk about stolen election in 2016 with no proof, Russian collusion, the Russian P-tape, all bullshit, all debunked. Okay. Yet he brings it up, and all he asked for on January 6th was, you need to look at this. You absolutely need to look at this. Okay. Because it's true. Congress did not do their job. And I'll explain this here in a second. Okay. All they had to do was look at it. But understand, Space Force. You think Space Force is there to fight aliens? Are you that brainwashed by Hollywood? 13 years of Ancient Aliens on the History Channel here. I don't know if you get that in the UK.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me? Understand, Space Force did not come under Posse Comitatus. And if you know what Posse Comitatus is, okay, you cannot bear arms against the American public. Well, I know they've been trying to take that away. As a Marine who still works on base, I had a young Marine a few years ago, 5 or 6 years ago, and he was a scout sniper. And we're talking, I'm a big shooter. We're talking this, and we got into the Second Amendment. And he goes, you want to hear something that'll scare the shit out of you? A bunch of us Marine officers were pulled into a room, given a questionnaire that said, in the case of a national emergency, would you follow orders to bear arms against the American public? And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. That is totally against the Constitution. You cannot use the U.S. military against the American public. And I said, what happened? He says, we all pretty much got up to a man, ripped them up, and threw him in the garbage and walked out in disgust. But that's what, I mean, you can go back to the 60s where they've been trying to take the Second Amendment away. We're winning the Second Amendment here. Second Amendment ain't never going away. I'll tell you that right now. Okay. We now have 30 states. We're getting very close with the Bruin decision of national reciprocity. They've already saying you cannot deny an issue. That's why New York State and California and all these liberal states had tried to make it so impossible. They're stomping their feet and shaking their fists, going, we're going to defy the Supreme Court. You can't do this. And
these are states where crime has gone through the roof, right?
Yeah, there's a very famous gentleman, John Lott. Was a liberal economics professor who started to see the rise in concealed carry throughout the U.S. and did a lot of research. And the culmination of that research was a book called More Guns, Less Crime. He pretty much tracked that in every state that enacted concealed carry, the crime rate went down. Why? Because criminals like unarmed victims. And I don't need to tell you about that. Okay. You have personal experience. They don't like armed victims. Okay. I'm lucky enough to, liberal California, I carry everywhere I go. I mean, they're offloading illegals. They're landing on boats right in my neighborhood, right off the coast here.
A problem that we share, Kurt. What is the situation over there with the illegals right now?
I don't see it here. I'm assuming Brighton's kind of like where I live here in North San Diego County. Very nice, coastal village, seaport, area. Don't really see it. But you got to be careful where you go. It's like anything else. You got your wits about you, your surroundings. You don't, look like a sheep and you will be eaten.
Yeah.
One of my favorite quotes.
Yeah.
Benjamin Franklin, I believe. No, Mark Twain. I think that's a Mark Twain quote. But anyway, you know what I mean.
I say the same thing. I say, if you look like a victim, you're going to become one. Same thing. Yeah. So before we wrap this up,
sure.
Going back to Trump for the moment, big question. So who do you think is behind this at the weekend? Do you have an opinion on that?
On who's behind what? What went on the shooting?
Yeah.
I think I believe, and this goes back that Trump and the team behind him, and I said, Trump's not doing this on his own. He had to be asked to run, I believe. They were assured his safety, his family's safety. Okay. But he has amazing amount of protection around him. Amazing. Okay. They knew, Like I said, he's already I heard at least 35 attempts on his life. Okay. So I believe that the major players, the deep state players, the cabal, if you want to call them, look at the Khazarian mafia, look what's going on worldwide, and look into what Trump has done globally. I mentioned a couple of great videos: Follow the Cabal, Takedown of the Cabal, what Donald Trump did in the first 2 years in office, and what he did visiting every country around the globe, getting them to capitulate. How did he get them to capitulate? He has all the evidence of the human trafficking and child trafficking. Understand, liberals, they'll support their candidate no matter what. I've heard the statement, I don't care if Joe Biden's head's in a jar of formaldehyde, I'll vote for him over Donald Trump.
Yeah.
One thing they will not tolerate is abuse of little ones and children. Okay. What's the quickest way in America as a convict going to prison to be murdered in your first week? Be a pedophile.
Yeah.
Okay. Any hardened criminal, that's where they draw the line. And that's what you're going to see here. Okay. The evidence of the human trafficking, and Donald Trump has even said it. We have more slavery now, more human trafficking in this point in history than we ever have. You just don't see it. And I have been following this for many, many years. I have one late Marine Corps friend who's been following this, has written books about it, has researched it. Like I said, I had friends who worked in Hollywood who told me about it. Look no further than the famous Ricky Gervais at the Golden Globes calling out the pedophiles in Hollywood. Okay. I believe he was put up to do it, to giving that speech. Okay. You're seeing an awakening of the global public. You're seeing the awakening throughout Europe, Asia. I have friends all over the globe, England, India, Japan, China, who are patriots, who have been following this, and they all say, all my friends, Australia, New Zealand, don't give up your Second Amendment. I'm like, trust me, we won't. And I have, the liberals go, well, you're saying we gave up our guns and nothing's happened. I said, yeah, your domino is now stacked.
Mm.
You gave up your guns. You've all given up your guns. Your dominoes are stacked. Guess what the final domino is? The United States of America. When we fall, you fall. Okay? We're not giving it up.
Yeah.
There are plenty of guys like me who have well past our use-by date, okay, who don't care. I took an oath to support and defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. That oath does not end until, as we say in the Marine Corps, I'm taking the big, long dirt nap or no longer casting a shadow. Okay. Yeah.
Very last question. It's been magnificent having you on. I mean, really brilliant. What's the perception of the UK right now out in the US amongst American patriots?
I think we're too bothered with what's going on here to really look at it. I've tried to follow it through you. It's a little confusing to me. Before you, all there was Katie Hopkins and Nigel Farage. So, I know what you're going through over there. Okay. But understand what Trump and his team is doing is not America. It's global.
Yeah.
And some of the things I'm going to send you here in the next day or two, I want you to watch and get back to me. And I think it will blow you away exactly what has been going on since 2016, 17. You're looking at the biblical battle of good and evil right now, if you ask me. And I'm not that religious of a guy, but I am spiritual. Was raised, in the Catholic Church. I left them long ago with all the bullshit and the nonsense, excuse my English, going on with, once again, abuse of children. Okay. I had lots of friends clue me in. What I know about the so-called current president and his predilections, I've heard firsthand from doctors and nurses at Walter Reed back in the 80s. Okay. So I've been privy to a lot of inside information that would curl most people's toes. And onesies, twosies, 10, 20 different things you can dismiss. Coincidence, I don't believe in coincidence, but coincidence, whatever. But the preponderance of evidence over years and years and years starts adding up, and the coincidences disappear. probability disappears, and you start putting 2 and 2 together, and you going, man, I'm not getting fooled by you people anymore. The news media, okay? If the news media in the U.S. is found to be complicit with a foreign government in taking down the U.S. election in 2020,
wow,
people will see, people will be brought to justice. I guarantee you. Okay. And God forbid you've done things to little ones, you will be brought to justice. We cannot tolerate a society that can't protect its children. Doesn't deserve to exist.
Absolutely, absolutely. Kurt, it's been wonderful having you on, mate.
Yeah.
We're running out of time, so all I can do is say thank you so much. It's been very interesting, and I'd like to have you back again as well before long. Absolutely.
I mean, I think I've pretty much said all I can say for right now. I'm going to send you some interesting stuff. I've known you felt this way for some time, and I just, we were kind of in that watch thing, and we had a common bond with that, and that was fun. But that was a fun distraction for me. Yeah. That's over.
This is the real deal.
Yeah. In the grand scheme of things, that means nothing, and you learned that a long time ago.
Yeah.
So
thank you very much, Kurt. All the best to you, my friend.
Yeah, you too.
Great seeing you.